Hello, Kindred! It has been a hot minute since I talked about Lore Olympus, hasn't it? Long story short, a little bit back, I kind of had a triggering moment, loosely related to Lore Olympus, of no fault of the creator or anything, and I needed to take a break for a bit because it just kind of didn't feel like a safe space for me anymore. And then when I did feel safe again, I didn't really feel like I had anything I wanted to talk about. See, when I make these videos, I don't make a video unless I feel compelled to, and the only time I usually feel compelled to is when I feel I have something I can add to the conversation. So if there's something that's like outwardly obvious and on the surface level, I just tend to enjoy those story moments for what they are, because I feel like there's nothing really I can say about them that's going to be of any worth to anyone. Which is why I usually wait to talk about the things that might not immediately pop into your mind when reading the comic, but are sort of like lurking beneath with subtext and such the like. Because of this, I feel like there's been some misconception that I'm negative about these stories and characters, and that's not the case at all. I'm very sorry that's the impression you got, if you felt like you were personally being attacked because you saw yourself in some of these characters, which honestly, the ownership we take over characters and sort of how we can take a criticism of that character personally because we relate so hard is honestly a topic I'm very intrigued about researching further and maybe making a video about. I don't know if that's worth it. If you're interested in that, I don't know, leave a comment. I don't know. It's been stewing. My point being is it's never my intention to attack anyone, even fictional characters. And the reason I critique those actions they've taken is because I feel it's important that we can learn from the characters we love. And honestly, it is okay to love a problematic character. There are many problematic characters that I myself am very endeared to. But just like in life, just because I love a character doesn't mean it excuses their bad behavior or makes it okay. I don't endorse that behavior regardless how much I may love that character or person. Real life and fiction blending all the time. And one of my favorite things about when characters make these decisions is because it further makes them real to us, because just like humans and whatnot, these characters are fallible. It makes them believable, it makes them relatable. But just because something's relatable does not mean it's excusable, if that makes sense. I hope it makes sense. Because the truth of the matter is a lot of these things, especially some of the romantically related things, we have been groomed as a generation into thinking that a lot of toxic behaviors and a lot of red flags are the norm. When no! My name is very, very jingly. My name is Kiri Callaghan, and today we're going to talk about trends in romantic stories that are toxic AF.
Kiri, are you about to drag Lore Olympus for being toxic?
Quite the contrary, judgy alter ego, because Lore Olympus has this groovy habit of actually calling out those trends. While some of them may still occur, instead of rewarding them like many RomComs do, they are given the appropriate response.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
Thank you, Inigo. See, the whole problem is there is a lot of toxic trends that we could spend a ton of time on, but I'm gonna just dip my toes in rather than go into a exceedingly long essay about this. Plus, we're not finished with Lore Olympus, so I feel like there's more to mine from this. So we're just gonna go over 4 of these today, but I look forward to maybe continuing this in the future and hearing some of your ideas about it as well. Let's start with the big obvious one. Lying. I love rom-coms, I really do. I grew up watching them with my mom, so even the really terrible and kind of super problematic ones, while you were sleeping, never been kissed. They have huge problems, but they still kind of make me happy and warm and fuzzy. That is really a credit to the filmmaker for making really problematic things seem romantic. Anyway, not the point. Do you remember that trend in rom-coms that kind of spanned from the 80s through the 90s to the early 2000s, where the entire premise was essentially one character making a huge lie in order to be around their crush, and somehow it worked out in the end? like pretending to be two different people so you can control both sides of the conversation and gaslight them. Or pretending to be a different person entirely that they might like instead of the real you. Or even something small, like pretending to know French.
Perfect. Do you speak French?
Well, no, but I will.
Or pretending to not know how to read at all. Now, if Lore Olympus was one of these 80s, 90s, early 2000s, who am I kidding? They still kind of do this today. RomCom. Ares would have been rewarded with this manipulative ass move because, oh my gosh, how romantic! Because this is the face of romance. Oh my stars and goddess, I do believe that is the face of a predator. My one worry, which is not a storytelling worry, it's a character flaw worry, because one of Persephone's greatest strengths, but also potentially her greatest weaknesses, is her empathy. Now, I am a huge, huge arguer for vigilant empathy, but there are certain people, certain manipulative people, and I believe we've touched on this before, who will take advantage of that. And maybe she'll think, oh, maybe he deserves a second chance. No, he does not! Holy crap! Not until he has worked his ass off to earn back that trust. But I'm getting off track. The point being is at the time, she does not think it is romantic. Thank gods. She does the smart thing and alerts her mother. Yeah, she probably should have kicked him out herself, but this got her point across. And that she meant business. And while I do not in any way agree with Demeter's choice to punish Persephone for the fact that Ares snuck in, Persephone does seem to play the child almost as much as her mother treats her as a child. I love the girl. I really do. This character is fascinating and very multifaceted to me. But let's not pretend that this isn't just as calculated and manipulating Demeter's overprotectiveness as Ares was manipulating Persephone's desire to help people. Now, context and motive are key here, and it does color those two moments very differently. But the skill and ability is there, and it should not be dismissed. I just sort of want you to put a little pin in that of just like, okay, you are capable of doing this despite that you seem to, for the most part, use it for good. This is also where we get in that weird moral gray area of, is all manipulation bad? And that's an entirely different conversation for another time, because in general, I sort of feel like humans can't really help being manipulative. I don't think it's intentional, but I think there are things we do subconsciously. Oh, it's a whole thing. I can't get into this right now because there's a lot of research that I still need to do, but it's one of those things that I'm like, interesting. That's not what we're talking about, Kiri. Move on. My basic point here is that trust is a huge part of a healthy relationship. You cannot sustain a relationship without trust, whether it be platonic, romantic, between mortals, or gods. You need trust. You can't even have a healthy business relationship without some level of trust. Straight up, I have been at jobs where I do not feel emotionally safe. That's a huge mental toll on a person, and my coworkers have never been really a part of my support network. At least not the support network that really mattered. But the idea of not having any support network at your place of business, stress, man, stress. This is also why Hades is going to have to come clean about that whole paying Persephone a wage when interns apparently don't normally get paid. It's a breach of trust. It doesn't matter if you think it's for her greater good. It's a breach of trust, and you didn't even come clean with it when you had an opportunity to, and I'm really nervous about when that comes to bite you in the butt. Angelique and I have talked about this many times. The liar revealed moment in any story is so uncomfortable. Like, it's just, There have been movies and shows where we have, like, because we've seen it before, we've skipped over that part, just to be like, skip to the next scene, just because it's like, it's so viscerally uncomfortable. Like, even if you know it's gonna be okay in the end. Also, totally unrelated, real talk, unpaid internships are bullshit. Free labor for a for-profit business, it irks me. The fact that the California Labor Board basically reinstated it has made me mighty salty, because I feel that opens a door to a world of unethical possibilities. But I digress again. Ignoring boundaries. Persephone owned up to the fact that she'd been kind of ignoring that Hades was in a relationship and not respecting it. They addressed that they both had feelings for each other. I've already talked about how that shouldn't have all been on Persephone, but what I didn't really touch on is how unique of a moment that is for a romantic storyline. Like, so many rom-coms would have taken this moment and had them in a passionate embrace. Hell, in Love Actually, all it took was a creepy video and some cue cards, and Keira Knightley gave a creeper a kiss for, I don't know, consolation? I know I'm supposed to find that moment sweet, but it just feels icky. Point being, with literally no help from Hades, seriously man, she's trying real hard here, come on, throw her a bone. And I don't mean like that. Persephone gets real vulnerable about how she feels and then slams down the boundaries of, hey, you're in a relationship and I'm not comfortable being the other woman. Because she shouldn't be that person. She knows her worth, which is, first of all, insane for a 19-year-old girl. Like, holy crap, I certainly didn't know my worth at 19. And two, that takes so much willpower and like sense of self, especially when someone's trying to actively woo you to be like, no, I want to respect this relationship you're in. And I don't know if I really got into how freaking proud of her I was, but it was just, you guys, fuck yeah. Yeah. She puts his and even Minthy's situation and her respect for that above her own wants and needs, which in my opinion is a true sign of love and respect, because it's not all about what she wants. Can't tell you how many times I have seen rom-coms or any sort of romantic storyline where it's like, I don't care what your current situation is or what you want or need. This is what I want, so I'm going to foist it on you. She doesn't try to insert herself further in any way. In fact, she sets clear boundaries of, I'm gonna take a step back and this is why. She sure as heck doesn't interrupt the couple on a date and hang off a Ferris wheel and threaten Hades that if he doesn't agree to a date, she'll drop to her death. Seriously, what the heck is with the Notebook? Why was that ever seen as even remotely romantic? I have so many questions. Yes, Persephone has slip-ups, but what's awesome about that is she shows you can have those slip-ups and still make it right. Despite initially making decisions she's not proud of, Persephone was the adult and acknowledged that she didn't like who it was making her into and corrected her behavior. Heck, yes! Being an It's not a secret that Minthy's tactics of keeping a man interested are unhealthy, but rom-coms have told us that being cold and aloof and unfeeling is what makes you sexy and alluring. No. Take movies like French Kiss, which I love so much, or Drive Me Crazy, where protagonists revive their ex's interests by acting disinterested and creating jealousy, which, let's be honest, if you're in a happy relationship, you will not be getting jealous of your ex being in a happy relationship because you won't freaking care. Happy people don't get jealous of other happy people because you're not envying anything. You're happy with what you got. You don't need to look over there. Now in these movies, the characters realize they don't actually want what they've been fighting for all this time. But let's say they never came to that realization, and they continued on with what is an emotionally and mentally abusive mind game to keep their partner interested. Eventually, they might have ended up like Minthy. Now, obviously there's more to Minthy than that, because Rachel fleshes out these characters more than 90s rom-coms do, and I'm definitely oversimplifying a bit, but there are very clear and definite parallels. We see the genuine consequence of these kind of mind games and behaviors in Minthy, whereas in a rom-com it usually ends in a triumph, albeit a fairly hollow one, but there's never really any genuine consequence for it. Our heroes realize that the one they wanted all along was the person they pretended to be in a relationship with, and they go off without really any atonement or consequence for purposefully, emotionally, and mentally manipulating their intended. Now, Minthy hasn't been using another relationship to make Hades jealous, but she definitely does actions specifically to make him wanting more, to feel like he's never enough. She's definitely used that same sort of tactic to manipulate him and his emotions. And when she uses a relationship to make someone jealous, it's to make Persephone jealous, which, that also hasn't been going well for her. Violence is romantic. Rom-coms love to tell us that violence in the name of love is super romantic. He's defending my honor. No, it's still assault. Hades attacked that reporter for what he perceived was sullying Persephone's honor. Actually, scratch that. This is not the same as I punched a guy and started a fist fight in an equal playing field because that dude called you a slut. No. This was taking it to a whole new extreme of I had a man kidnapped, tied him up, and then psychologically terrorized him until I removed his literal eye. All because he suggested you might be my mistress in a dumb tabloid that you didn't care about, but I decided to do it anyway because I know best and it was for love. But you know what's awesome? That bit him in the butt, as it should have, because it was not okay. Persephone confronted him and made him make it right. Yay, Lore Olympus! Though honestly, I personally think he shouldn't have been let off the hook by just putting the eye back in, because there's still a lot of shiz he's got to work through in regards to why that happened. Also, it's just very extreme, but we're dealing with the gods, so I guess everything's extreme. Regardless, that did not work out for him the way he thought it would. There were real as in like it was real to them, because obviously this was within the laws of this fictional world that has been fleshed out and created that we get to be a part of briefly. Anyway, real world consequences. It's great. And frankly, that's what makes me extremely excited about Lore Olympus versus a lot of rom-coms, is I see her subverting these things, and while our beloved characters are making steps that you're like, oh, that's not healthy, the storytelling is showing us, no, it's not. And bad things will happen eventually because of it. It may not be immediate, but your actions have consequences. And I love that. It makes me so happy and excited, and also vaguely terrified about what's going to happen in the future. It's just a little bit of trepidation, I'm not gonna lie, but it'll be a wild, awesome, and exciting ride. And those are 4 tropes that are common in rom-coms that Lore Olympus took and was like, okay, but what would actually logically happen if you attempted this? And it's great. Thank you so much for watching. If you've got another trope that Lore Olympus kind of does the whole switcheroo on, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to talk about it more with you, and maybe I'll make another video of this, like, down the road. Either way, I would love to hear about it. Keep on the windy side of Kara Kindred, and until next time, stay curious.
If you enjoyed this video, please click like and subscribe, and you can check out that video over there that YouTube also thinks you would enjoy. If you like the general cut of my gibberish, you can find me on all my lovely socials. I am now also on TikTok and falling down the LARP hole there. Or you can join me on my Patreon, where you'll get behind-the-scenes sneak peeks of videos, scripts, song downloads, and access to my current writing project, which is Changeling, and I only have, is it 8 or 7? 7 more chapters to go? Oh goodness, oh goodness.